Right. So here's the thing. The recent release of the ESPN documentary Be Water could not have been any timelier considering the events of the past 2 weeks, not just here in America, the land of Bruce Lee's birth, but kind of around the world. 10 minutes into the program, they show scenes from the 1971 Hong Kong riots, right in keeping with the riots that we've seen again here in the United States in major cities, but in other cities around the world. But just like it's done on TV a lot these days, they do leave out some salient points. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast number 131. This is the one about Bruce Lee and let's call it Hollywood racism. As you're logging in, if you guys would be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and continue to do so throughout the broadcast. If you're catching the final edit replay over on the YouTube, be sure to subscribe, and hit the notification bell over there. And if you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com/store and check out what we have to offer. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. All right, so let me see how much trouble I can get myself in today. So co-opt much, right? So a disclaimer right off the bat. And those of you who've been around me for a while, you know this. I am not a writer. I am not a pundit. I am just one of, I dare say, millions of people upon whom Bruce Lee had a profound effect many, many years ago. But since, unlike him, I am still around, so I'm able to comment and opine on other people's presentations of Bruce Lee, complete with my personal prejudices, of course, right? And today I shall give you a small sample. But unlike ESPN, I'm not going to spend 2 hours because I'm not trying to show aspects of, like how bad things were back in the day, and aspects of how they're not that much better for some people these days. Whenever and wherever possible, in life generally, but in Jeet Kune Do specifically, I like to put, let's call it a spin, as positive a spin as possible. It's popular these days to highlight that in the early days of the founding of the country of America, they didn't really get things 100% right. And to this day, there is still a struggle to live up to, let's call it the idea of paradise right here on earth. And the people with these ideas they've gotten around. They've done it a little bit before, but they've gotten around once again to including an aspect of Bruce Lee's life into their storyline, as if we didn't have enough politics in Jeet Kune Do already. You may recall in last week's broadcast, we talked about how JKD is not for the mass-minded. I made up that phrase last week. You might remember that. Now, I have heard that over at ESPN, where this documentary was produced, they have become fairly political over the past 4 years or so, weighing in on social issues instead of keeping their focus on sports, which, as I understand, is supposed to be their thing, right? So, as an aside, for example, in preparing for today's broadcast, I read a 7-page article about whether or not Bruce Lee could fight. As if it takes 7 pages to really answer that question, right? Okay, so back to the topic. My JKD buddy, Richard Torres, put up a Facebook post asking people their opinions on the documentary. And of course, the responses ran the gamut from people who loved it to people who thought it was so-so. And of course, there were those who thought it could have shown more about Bruce Lee, the martial artist. I agree with a lot of what was said in that post, but I'll take it customarily one step farther. They could have made a much better film by quickly asking and just as quickly answering the racism question, and then continuing on to show the great lessons that we all can learn from Bruce Lee's approach to living. So, for example, on the question of being a Chinese hero in an American series, Bruce Lee said, about why he didn't get the gig and what have you. Bruce Lee said, unfortunately, such things does exist in this world in certain parts of the country. They think that business-wise, it's a risk. And I don't blame them. It's like in the same way in Hong Kong, if a foreigner came and became a star, if I were the man with the money, I probably would have my own worry if the acceptance would be there. Those are Bruce Lee's words an hour and 25 minutes into the documentary. They could have just shown that and they would have been done with the whole racism issue. And then they could have gone on to talk about how the legacy that he left, if properly applied, could be used to raise the standards of everybody's evolution. Because remember, if you saw I Am Bruce Lee, the Reginald Hudlin film, you might remember him saying that Bruce Lee was as big a MacGuffin in Brooklyn, New York, as he was in Hong Kong. And I could tell you for a fact that down in the islands in Barbados, Bruce Lee was the thing. He was the deal, right? So what does that tell you? It tells you that people all over the place relate to Bruce Lee in similar ways, all right? And because of what? I dare say because of authenticity. So if anybody asked me, right, to make a documentary on Bruce Lee and include the acts of racism that took place around him and maybe that even took place towards him, I would show that this is a guy whose rendition of My Definite Chief Aim. Now, because I'm not on Be Live, I can't push the picture that I had of Bruce Lee's Definite Chief Aim. But if you've been with me for a while, you've seen it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But because of computer malfunctions, I can't push that up. But I would talk about that and where it comes from. As you know, it comes out of Napoleon Hill's teachings and what have you. And I would point out that that this is one of the things that Bruce Lee carried in his proverbial back pocket. I would also show his handwritten copy of the self-confidence formula. And if you know anything about, again, about Napoleon Hill's teachings on self-confidence, the self-confidence formula is a thing that you're supposed to commit to memory and recite every day, right? Sin falta. So I think if we want Bruce Lee's legacy to endure, then we show people how this OG, right? We show how he rolled back in the day, focusing as much on his mind and spirit as he did on his art and body. Okay, so I'll leave you with, I was going to leave you with one thing, but I was going to leave you with two things, but I think I'll leave you with one thing. And again, my apologies for not being able to put it up. But in the final edit video, I will be able to splice them in. But this is what I'm going to leave you with. So again, if you've been with me for a while, you kind of know that that I love to correct the inaccuracies in quotes that are misassigned or misapplied to Bruce Lee, right? So there's another very famous one that says, "To hell with circumstances, I create opportunities." Dead wrong. That's not what he said. Bruce Lee wrote autographed a picture of himself to James Lee. And here's what it said. Circumstances? Heck, I create circumstances. Now, in either case, whether you go with the I create opportunities or you go with the I create circumstances, in either case, the sentiment perfectly encapsulates Bruce Lee's approach. Racism or no racism towards him in America, what did he do? He went right out and created his own circumstances. And we are still talking about him 50 years later. So All the marketing people say that I should leave you with a call to action at the end, right? So here's my call to action. Everybody, if you've never written out your definite chief aim, write it out and then get busy bringing it into fruition. And if you can find a copy of the self-confidence formula, do that as well. Because obviously, this is something to which Bruce Lee paid attention. All right, so I don't know if with this I am going to be able to, okay, so you guys can hear me and the picture is good. All right, so let me see if there's anything that that I should comment on or what have you. I am Tavis LeMay. What did JKD's Pope Day? Bob Landers, I don't understand what you're saying. Like Tavis LeMay, you're a wreck. You're a wreck. Okay. The very logic of JKD taught me at a young age, each art has much to benefit from. This being the case, each culture and thus each. Yeah, and you'll hear Sifu Nasano say over and over again that one of Bruce Lee, and then you'll hear in the Pierre Bertol interview also that Bruce Lee was very, very interested in showing people, not just because he was part Chinese, he was very interested in showing people aspects of Chinese culture, but overall the idea was if you could appreciate Chinese culture, then you could learn to appreciate different cultures from around the world. I personally always thought it interesting that Taki Kimura of Japanese extraction is who was put in charge in Seattle, and Inasano, Filipino American, was put in charge in Los Angeles. But even more importantly, that Jesse Glover was the first person to start training with Bruce Lee. I think that Bruce Lee was making statements all along without making statements, right? Okay, all right. So nobody had anything for me to comment. And again, I apologize. This is like the second week rolling that that the computer has been acting up. So I will have it rectified. But that's it. So feel free to share, like, comment, ask questions. I will review after posting. Sign up for notifications for when we go live here on Facebook. And as I asked before, if you're over on the YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. I love jeetkundo.com. The Quick Skill Series Volume 1 is still available. Coming up on Friday, June 12th, Jeet Kune Do Dialogues with Bruce Wilkerson of American Boxing Gym. That's this Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Today, if you can't tell, is a red day. And that's about it. I'll see you back here. Some of you on Friday at 6, if not next Wednesday for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care now.